Welcome back to Big Country Politics on KTAB.
Governor Abbott, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have several things to cover. We want to get right to it, starting with your top priorities.
Sure. Well, you laid out some of those top priorities. Listen, I know the people in Abilene and across the entire state are impacted by rising property taxes. And we not only need to use state money, which, by the way, the state does not levy a property tax. Only local jurisdictions do that. What the state can do is we can tap into the budget surplus that we have and buy down those property tax rates so that your property taxes will go down. However, we did that 2 years ago, only to see local jurisdictions increase those property tax rates again. This time we will continue to reduce your property tax rates by using the budget surplus to do so. However, we must limit the ability of local taxing jurisdictions to go back and raise your property taxes. You mentioned water. Listen, water may be more essential in your viewing area than almost any other area in the entire state of Texas. I am calling for an all-time record investment to build out water infrastructure so that the farmers and ranchers and homeowners are going to be able to have the water they need. That includes fixing pipes across our entire state, many of which are aged and broken. And you mentioned school choice. Listen, as you mentioned in the story before this, you have an outstanding teacher there. And most of the schools in the state of Texas are outstanding. In fact, Texas has more blue ribbon schools than any other state. That said, I know that there are parents watching this show right now who have a child that may be trapped in a school that's not right for that particular child. Parents know which school is going to be best for their child. School choice will provide every parent with that opportunity.
All right, Governor, thank you. One of your third items listed on your priorities were teacher pay raises, and they were even called as an emergency item last session several times. Can you ensure that teacher pay raises actually make it through this legislative session, and when can they expect to receive the money they've been promised?
Absolutely, there will be a teacher pay raise this session. I did make it an emergency item because there are several criteria that lead to the best education. One of the foremost is having good quality educators. And to make sure we have those educators, we want to pay them and pay them more. We will be providing an all-time record amount of pay for teachers this session. That money will pass in the final bill that will reach my desk, the budget, at the end of May, and should be effective come September. All the teachers in the state of Texas should know there's going to be a pay raise. Know this, if you're in a school district of about 5,000 students or more, the teacher pay raise may be as much as $5,500 more. If you're in a rural district of less than 5,000 students, you may be eligible for a pay raise of up to $10,000 more a year.
All right, thank you, Governor. And I know that the school pay raises this year are not linked to your school choice legislation as they were last year, so we're looking forward to seeing how that pans out. But on the topic of school choice, State Representative Stan Lambert represents much of the Big Country. He just won re-election in November. He defeated Republican challenger Liz Case, and he's been very vocal about his opposition to the voucher program, which, well, to boast, it voices the sentiments of a lot of his constituents. So how would you convince the voters here in West Texas that vouchers are the best choice for them, especially the rural areas?
Sure. Well, know this, and that is the last two Republican primaries, there was a ballot initiative on that primary where voters, they're in the Big Country, and they got to cast a vote. Do they support school choice or not? And overwhelmingly, they said yes, they support school choice. But the fact of the matter is we can have both. It's not one or the other. We can fully fund our public schools, which is what we're going to do, while at the very same time provide a school choice option for parents across the region. We find it to be very effective in rural areas as well as suburban and urban areas as well. And we want to make sure that regardless of where parents live, where a child may otherwise attend school, if the school that he or she is currently attending is not the right school for them, we want to make sure that parents have a choice. But know this, the scope of this school choice program is smaller than 1/4 of charter schools. You haven't seen charter schools disrupt public schools there in Abilene. Neither will you see school choice disrupt public schools there in Abilene or San Angelo or any other place like that.
No, we certainly haven't, Governor, but they are charter schools, private schools. They are few and far between out here in West Texas. There's not a whole lot of options. So when you talk to other districts, it's certainly a priority for all of us to be able to provide the best education for our students and for the teachers to have a place that they can teach and they feel confident to do that. So we want to thank you for your time today, Governor, and for your questions and taking them. And we hope to talk to you again very soon. We appreciate everything that you've done for us so far. So as far as Governor Abbott's concerned, we want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. Y'all take care.
All right, again, that was Governor Abbott. We want to thank him for making the time to talk with voters today, talking about his top priorities and school choice. And of course, you'll be able to rewatch this conversation we had with Governor Abbott on the KTAB website. That's bigcountryhomepage.com.
When we come back here on Big Country Politics, another side regarding the school choice issue in Texas as we welcome Bob Popinski, Senior Director of Policy of Raise Your Hand Texas. We're back in 2 minutes.
Welcome back to Big Country Politics on KTAB.
Well, welcome to this week's Sunday Conversation here on Big Country Politics. This week we welcome Senior Director of Policy Bob Popinski from Raise Your Hand, the Raise Your Hand organization. Bob, we had a chance to speak with Governor Abbott earlier this week. He spoke to our Joni McKinnon on Tuesday about legislative priorities along with teacher pay raises and school vouchers. Before we get into school vouchers, let's talk about teacher pay raises. Based on what you're hearing in Austin, how much of a priority are teacher pay raises to the governor, and do you anticipate raises getting through this legislative session?
Yeah, I think it's a huge priority, not just to the governor, but a lot of members in the Texas House and the Texas Senate. Texas ranks number 30 in the nation in teacher salaries. We're about $8,800 below the national average. So over the last handful of years, you've seen it harder and harder to attract and retain quality teachers in our public schools. And so as we kind of move through the session, we only have 60 days left, there are some bills out there that will help increase teacher salaries. The Senate already passed Senate Bill 26 out of the Senate that would provide anywhere between a $2,500 raise and a $10,000 raise, depending on years of experience and the size of your school. The House has House Bill 2, which has some escalators in there for teacher salaries as well. So they're definitely paying attention to it.
You know, Raise Your Hand organization, you're an advocate for education in Texas. What would you say your concerns are regarding your organization about school vouchers as this conversation continues in the House and the Senate of Texas?
Yeah, absolutely. First, let's do some level setting on what public schools do, right? We have 5.5 million students in our public schools, over 380,000 teachers. It will always be the vast majority of students in our state getting a great education from our public schools. And so first and foremost, we believe the legislature, whose its responsibility it is to set a per student funding amount, is to fund public schools first. And so in order to do that, they need to increase something called the basic allotment, and House Bill 2, which is moving through the process, does that. But in order to do that, you need roughly $20 billion over the next 2 years just to give school districts the same purchasing power as they had back in 2019. And right now, the bills moving through the process, I mentioned House Bill 2 on the House side and Senate Bill 26, don't come close to that $20 billion amount. But at the end of the day, we are now competing with a voucher bill, Senate Bill 2, moving through the process that has a $1 billion price tag on it the first year of implementation in the 26-27 school year. And it escalates to a cost by 2030 of $4.8 billion.
Bob, when I speak to folks that are on both sides of this argument here, certainly folks that are pro school choice, they say that it offers certainly another alternative to keeping school districts accountable and honest. What's your response to that? I mean, does it do that?
Yeah, we believe in competitions. Public schools already do that. We already offer great public school choice with great accountability. Students who go to public school choice schools like magnet programs or CTE programs have to follow by the same rules everyone else does. They have to follow the STAR test. They have to follow the A-F accountability rating system. The school districts have to submit financial integrity ratings. And so when you go over to a private school, they don't have to do any of that if they accept a student with an ESA program. Right now, the only thing those accredited private schools or vendors would have to do is provide a nationally normed reference test to those students in grades 3 through 12 in this bill. And that's kind of it. The comptroller has some accountability measures over them, but nothing compared to public schools.
I'm assuming that's probably how you get to, a level playing field with what you would consider a level playing field with provisions and policies. Is there any more that you would probably add to that?
Yeah, I think as we move through the process, the major sticking point here is that school districts are strained for revenue. They're strained for funding for their programs. And as you've seen in both the House bill and the Senate voucher bill program, is that over the course of just 4 years, it expands to $4.8 billion. If you look at the teacher pay raise bill right now that the Senate is offering, that's about the same they're offering for public school teacher pay raises. And remember, there's 380,000 public school teachers. And so we want, as we kind of move forward in the last 60 days, to make sure that the legislature does its job and make sure that the school districts have the resources needed so they can continue to provide a great education for our 5.5 million students.